identity in such a fundamental way that it impacts all of our intimate relationships and the ways in which we move forward with the people that we love, as well as, in my case, I lost my husband. So every intimate relationship that I have from this point forward will be shaped by this loss.
Yes, yes. I think sometimes we forget that we can still feel that loss one day later, 1 week later, a year later, and so on. What do you then think is maybe some of the obstacles that people face when it comes to understanding the impact of grief on your intimacy as well as other relationships?
The impact of grief on understanding. I think that there is in a level of reorientation that happens in grief where you are reforming your identity. Like, who am I post loss? And I think going through something so intense and incredibly meaningful at the same time, there's so much nuance. Like, there can be meaning and beauty embedded within pain at the same time. And I think that just being really gentle and patient with that process, particularly in the first, year, but 2 years really. I mean, I'm 2 months out from the 2 year anniversary of my husband's passing. And I'm still very surprised at the way that I'm unfolding in this journey. And in approaching it with curiosity and compassion, as opposed to expectation, like, oh, I should be any certain way by this point in time. Like, there is no should. Like, this is unprecedented. I've never been through this before. And just having a lot of compassion for that.
I remember when I've lost two people that were close to me. One was a friend many years ago during COVID. And so that was what, 2020, 2021. And then my grandmother, December of last year. And both impacted me differently. When I lost my friend, I didn't know grief directly. So I went to a few people at that time. But the first person I went to was my girlfriend at that time for support. Like a lot of people, right? Like once you can't get something for yourself, you go to your partner. And then you go to your friends. I found that the person was very unsupportive. And when you mentioned intimacy, it reminded me of that because what I had to do is the person was trying to support me through offering sex. But at that time, it wasn't what I wanted. And for the men out there, yes, men always want sex, calm down. But it wasn't what I wanted at that point in time. And then I began to realize later on that some people, when they offer something, it's all that they have to offer. And some people who lead with sex, who lead with money, that's what they're going to offer because maybe they don't put any significant value in anything else. When you experience it through your with your spouse, what were some of the support that you needed during that time, but maybe you got it and maybe you didn't get it? And why?
I'm so glad that you framed this question in this way and that you asked it. I have found, that in so many ways, like people, like just like what you experienced, that people show up um, at the capacity that they have. And it's not always the capacity that matches the need of the moment. And I have found that a lot of times the um, the discomfort that is inherent in our culture today with death and grief tends to fall back on the bereaved, where people they don't know what to say, and so sometimes they'll just distance themselves because they don't want to say the wrong thing, or they don't want to make you feel worse. I'd say like my biggest response to that is like, you can't make me feel worse. I already feel all of the things, like I'm already sad. Like, you bringing up my husband isn't going to make me more sad. I'm thinking about them constantly. Um, but I'd say the biggest thing for me, the biggest sort of void was that I really, really wanted and needed my parents to be present for me and just show up. Like I didn't need them to buy me anything. I didn't need financial support. I just needed people to just be present and witness me as I'm going through this, very monumentally transformative and painful moment. And um, they just, that was something that was not within their realm of capability. And I'm still reckoning with that, and it's still quite challenging. Um, but I'll also say that with respect to what you shared about your experience, I found that when after my husband passed away, like this was a time for ultimate presence, like uh to be available to what I was experiencing and feeling without masking or covering it up with drugs or alcohol or sex or anything can be a masking agent in certain circumstances, exercise, work, like all sorts of things. And I really wanted to allow myself to feel what I was feeling, because in previous experiences of my life I have gone the masking route. And I know that to be more like a slingshot. Like it's gonna make it so much worse for me in the future if I don't cope with what I'm experiencing now.
There was someone, she experienced that masking that you're speaking of. And what she did is that she full blown went into sexual experiences. And what she was discovering, it was giving her a sense of confidence that she didn't necessarily have before, but it was fleeting. So the confidence was tied to the bedroom. So after the deed was done, it's like, oh crap. Okay, I need to do it again, right? Because I need to build up because as it's coming down, now you're starting to feel the grief. You're starting to feel the emotions, right? So she went on, for lack of a better word, like a sexual rampage, right? But where the difficulty was starting to happen is there was her relationship was becoming very superficial. So as she was expressing this to maybe her peer group, they're trying to counsel her and say, hey, maybe this isn't the best way for you to work yourself through this. But because she was getting something that she wasn't getting from other people, which was that confidence, and now she feels attractive, she started to push people away and she started to live in it. From your personal experiences or from the experiences of others, do you see people going down the path of maybe behavior that isn't as healthy long term, but because it feels so good in that moment, they can't resist it?
Definitely. I like to think of that as a short-term gain for a long-term loss. And I mean, in the way that I work with people and also the way that I work with myself is in a very introspective manner. I don't want to tell anyone about themselves or their behavior. I just want to create a safe container for them to explore themselves, by asking questions, by mirroring back what they say that they're experiencing, and also approaching them with curiosity and compassion. Sometimes I find within myself, especially, that a lot of times, but behavior patterns in the past have been sort of ingrained in me as like autopilot in ways that I didn't consciously choose, but that these neural pathways that were created when I was a child, and maybe they were suitable for the environment that I had then, but now as an adult, the version of me that I am today, like these um, behavior responses aren't appropriate for who I am today, and they're not serving me as this version. So it's really helpful to have, someone very trusted that can create an environment where it's, just about creating care for oneself and investigating. who we are and why we are the way that we are, and if the way that we're showing up in life is congruent with the way that we want to see ourselves in the world.
What are some of the steps that someone can work to find themselves and discover the type of person that maybe that they are and that they want to become?
I think it starts with presence. It starts with showing up with our for ourselves. We talked about the type of support that we need in grief. Like I talked about what I needed from my parents and wasn't able to get. And what it meant for me was to show up for myself as the mom that I always needed and as the dad that I always needed. And I think that there's a whole other universe of what self-care can look like as a, in contrast to getting massages and, a manicure and getting our hair done and going shopping. That's all wonderful, but I think when it really comes down to it, like showing up for ourselves is more of a core, like fundamental mechanism of seeing ourselves and our bodies and saying, like, asking ourselves, like, what do you need? What do I need right now? And being really present with the answers and being kind to ourselves, not just in this moment, but the me of 1 hour from now, the me for tomorrow morning, the me for 1 week from now. And sometimes that means cooking a really nutritious meal instead of getting the fast and convenient easy thing from the grocery or from a restaurant or a fast food place. Sometimes it means taking a walk, like blocking off 20 minutes on your calendar to just go outside and stretch your legs. Um, Sometimes it means expanding our mind, reading a book. Something that has been immensely supportive for me and for many others is to um, find ourselves in stories. Like when we are able to relate to someone else's journey, either in a book or a film, it makes us feel less alone. We know that, I mean, humans are creatures of story. We've been telling stories since the beginning of time. And the reason for that is that the emotional and community support that is derived from storytelling. And so when I am, struggling to figure out how to go through something that I'm going through, like finding a version of this in a book, I might not be repeating or copying the book's circumstances, but it does open my mind and open